In 1982, an employee working at a Japanese computer shop called PSK had an idea. What if we make a game, but it's erotic? He went to his boss with this idea.
Erotic games. I like the idea, but that name is too long.
Erotic games, erotic games. How about we call it Eroge? What do you think?
I approve.
These two men are the culprits behind Japan's current declining birth rate. Fast forward 2022 and the Japanese are now facing extinction. Because of these evil eroge, men aren't going outside. And if they don't go outside, they can't meet women. And if they can't meet women, they can't reproduce. In comes Inosuke. This man, I think it's a man, aims to solve the declining birth rate. He thought, if men are not leaving their houses, they won't be able to find anyone to reproduce with. How should I encourage Japanese men to reproduce without leaving their houses? If only there were already women in their houses. Wait a minute. Living with Sister Monochrome Fantasy is a life simulator eroge developed by Inosuke. And as you had already guessed, from the game's title, it is peak degeneracy. I picked this game up a while ago during a Steam sale, on a whim. It really was on a whim and not because I'm a degenerate. I had leftover budget and this game had an overwhelmingly positive review on Steam when I bought it, so I didn't do it because of the sister in the game's title, nor was it because it's an eroge, I swear. Where was I? Alright, I bought this game on a whim, expecting to play it for a few hours and never touch it again. Then I booted the game up for the first time and started playing. Next thing I knew, 8 hours had passed.
It's time to stop!
And before any of you say, he had an 8-hour-long gooning session, I did no such thing in that first 8 hours. The game is that good, and I'll explain why. Now, where do I begin? A good reviewer would break a review into sections for coherence's sake. In the case of this game, it would be something like gameplay, story, and sex with your sister. But because I'm neither good nor a reviewer, I'm gonna rotate between these three at random throughout the video. I'll try to avoid main story spoilers though. The game is set in the fantasy town of Mekua, where we play as an unnamed self-insert character called Onijang. Yes, every character in this game calls us that. They were like, you have a little sister? That makes you a big brother, so we'll call you Onijang from now on. And then the entire town just starts calling us that instead of using our name. And before you say that's weird, it's not. I call my doctor Doctor instead of using his name. Well, actually, that's because I never bothered to learn his name, but still. A few days before the start of the game's story, our father left to go on a treasure hunt. He works as an adventurer and is often away from home due to his job. And this treasure hunt might be his longest job yet. In one of my save files, it's been over 300 days in-game and he's not back yet. Not that I'm complaining, I'm having the time of my life with my sister. Before he left, he told us to watch after our sickly little sister. A very poor choice of word considering we'll be watching our sister all the time. When she's sleeping, when she's bathing, when she's peeing. Well, sometimes the game calls it peeping, but peeping is just watching without getting noticed, so I guess we're doing exactly what we were told to do. So with our dad out of the picture and our mom dead. I think she's dead, but I'm not sure. She's rarely mentioned in the story and I can't remember if the game explicitly states the fate of our mom. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right, with our parents out of the picture, it falls on us to be the man of the house and put food on the table. And to do that, we work as an adventurer at a small local adventurers guild. An average weekday in this game is broken into two parts. The morning where we work at the guild and the evening where we go home to spend time with our sister. The weekends are different, but we'll get there. So, at the guild, what do we do? Well, we can either do some training to raise our stats and get stronger, or we can work for money. Since this game is a stat management sim, raising stats is very important. And this game has two sets of stats for you to work on, yours and your sister's. We'll talk about the sister's stats later. For now, let's focus on ours. So on our side, we have a lot of stats, starting with the 5 combat stats, which I don't know what each of them does exactly, but they're the most important stats in the game because they govern combat. And in this game, it is possible to fail a playthrough if your stats are too low to win a key story fight, especially on hard mode. Then you have energy, which dictates how many actions you can take in a day before needing rest. Lust is how horny you are, and stamina is how many times you can, come in a day. By the way, you can upgrade your stamina so that you can come up to a maximum of 9 times a day. That's very realistic. What, you thought I was gonna say that's unrealistic? Just because you can't do it doesn't mean it's not real. Moving on to money, which most people would consider a resource instead of a stat, but I'll group it as a stat for simplicity's sake. You know the saying, money is status and all that. And with money, you can buy various useful items, like books that you can read to raise your stats or gifts for your sister, such as snacks. The other currency type stat you can spend is skill points. This allows you to unlock skills you can use in combat or in bed, such as this one called Magic Cock, which, just so you know, your character cannot use magic in combat, so does this skill imply that he knows magic but refuses to use it outside of having sex with his sister? Best. Lastly, there's your condition stat. The better you feel, the more stat points you gain during training. It's not the most important stat, so don't worry about it. Oh, I had mentioned how important the combat stats are in this game, but I have yet to explain the combat system, so for this game's combat, big numbers win fights. Look, it's a little sister incest game. The developers didn't think the combat system through too deeply. Just raise your stats and use the basic attacks to win. It's very simple. Now, once you're done with work and or training, you go home. And what awaits you is your sister. The evening section of the game is where the fun is. At home, you'll be able to further work on your own stats via training if you find your training at the guild lacking, or you can instead spend time with your beloved sister. And by beloved, I mean beloved, as in you loved your sister. And no, you don't get a choice. The game dictates your character is a ciscon, and no, there is no other love interest in this game. Until the DLC story, which happens after the main story ends, but we'll talk about it later. But in the main story, your sister is your only romance option, and that's a good thing. As much as I love having a harem, my issue with Eroge like Evenico is that while you have a harem of many cute girls, there usually are not enough scenes with each of them. And this issue becomes more apparent if you have a favorite among your harem. You really gotta respect Inusuke's confidence for going, yeah, this is your only romance option, and depending on what difficulty level you chose for your playthrough, you might have to spend more than 20 hours with her. But I'm gonna make sure you care for her by the end. Meanwhile, other Eroge developers are like, I don't know what type of girl you like, so I'm giving you options to choose from. Cowards. Cowards, all of them. Now your sister has stats that can be raised based on what you do with her during the evening section of the day. You have trust, which is how much your sister trusts you. This stat determines what non-sexual activities you can do with your sister. For example, at first she will refuse to take a bath with you, but once she trusts you enough, she'll join you in the bath. Also, yes, I said non-sexual. Siblings can bathe together in an innocent manner, you fucking pervert. But if you want to make innocent things turn naughty, then you're gonna have to raise her interest stat. The interest stat is how interested in sex your sister is, and you can raise it by being physical with her. It all starts with an innocent hate pat, then a brotherly hug, then the next thing you know you're watching each other masturbate. In short, the interest stat is how far your sister is willing to go sexually, and if you raise it high enough, she'd be down for butt stuff. Then there's lust, which is self-explanatory, and it works the same way as your lust. It determines whether or not your sister is in the mood for sex. And while we're talking about mood, the last sister stat is called mood. Remember when I said your sister is sickly? Well, she has a sickness that will cause her to explode if she becomes emotionally unstable. Yeah, I'm not explaining that plot point. Let's just say keep her happy, or else you'd be blown to bits along with your house. From the way I've been explaining the game so far, you may be thinking that this game sounds simple and superficial. Nothing special, just a stat management game like Idol Manager where big numbers equal good, but with incest. And you'd be right, if not for the special ingredient that Inusuke put into this game. The immersion. You know how everybody has a routine in their daily lives? Well, this game is about grinding. No, not that kind of grinding, I was talking about stats grinding. It also forces you into a daily routine. On weekdays, you go to work in the morning and come home in the evening with a fraction of your energy left. What do you do then? Do you relax a little? Do you do extra training before the next main story boss fight? Or do you spend time with your sister trying to get under her panties? If you've worked a 9 to 5 before, you'd know this exact feeling of having to decide what to do after coming home from work tired. Do you take a nap, play some video games, read a book, or work some more? This fall into routine is what makes stat grinding in this game feels real. Even down to the weekends. Just like in real life, you get a bit of a break during the weekends, and you can choose to spend it however you want with extra options such as going shopping in the nearby city with your sister. Also, the city you can go shopping with your sister in this game is called Town. Yeah, a city named Town. Not sure if it's a translation error or the Japanese dev tried to name the city Town. Now, if this game was all about grinding within a routine, then it would not be an immersive game, would it? After all, there are other stat management Eroge that go, if relationship point is lower than X, then the girl will turn you down when you ask for sex. But if relationship point is greater than X, then she will suddenly do a 180 and be willing to have sex with you. Which doesn't feel natural. But in this game, your relationship with your sister is a smooth progression that can go forward, backward, and sideways. And your sister will respond differently to your advances depending on her stats. Let me give you an example. I mentioned how you need to raise your sister's trust before she's willing to join you in the bath. But if you think you can go straight to bath sex from there, then think again. At first, all you can do is shower with her. Once you get closer to her, she will help you wash your back, or you can help wash hers. Then once you two get even closer, you can try asking her for bath sex, but she would deny you. But try asking 3 times in a row, and by the third ask, she'd be like, you know, it's not normal for siblings to do this, but at least I can help you out with a handy. But still nothing penetrative. Get even closer to her and then, yeah, you know where the next base is. So you see, the game will show you that your relationship with your sister is getting better, and then reward you accordingly. And the example I gave was just about your bathing activities. You can improve your relationship with your sister so that you can get it on with her in the middle of any activity. While she's cooking, while on a swimming trip, wake her up in the middle of the night, walk in on her while she's peeing, and yeah, you know where this leads. And the fact that you can bang your sister anywhere in the house adds to the game's immersion. Your house feels lived in. It doesn't feel like a video game scene or a setting, it feels like a place two lovers live in. Ever heard of the phrase love nest? Your house in this game encapsulates a love nest perfectly. Like newlyweds who just got their own place and would not stop banging everywhere.
On the bed, on the floor, on a towel by the door, in the tub, in the car, up against the minibar.
Now I mentioned your relationship with your sister can go forward, backward, and sideways. Forward and backward are self-explanatory, but sideways? What did I mean by that? Well, it just means that you don't really need to form a relationship with her if you don't want to. Hell, you can go through the entire game without ever interacting with your sister outside of what is necessary to keep her alive. The game even has an Easter egg for you if you manage to reach one of the endgame bosses while having your sister's virginity intact. But then you might say, that just sounds like playing an Eroge without the arrow part. But what if I tell you, you don't need to work on your relationship with your sister at all and still get sex? Yes, your relationship with your sister can get extremely sideways. Even if you didn't build any trust with her, this game will still allow you to sneak onto her bed at night while she's sleeping. Yes, that's rape.
Stop raping, sir!
And if you do that, you're a scumbag. And you don't get to call yourself a big brother. Morality aside, if your sister catches you trying to mess with her while she's sleeping, you could get a bad ending. She will write a letter to your dad and he will come back home and put an end to your siscon life. So if for some reason you are dead set on being a scumbag brother, your best bet is to invest in skills that prevent your sister from waking up in the middle of the night. Alternatively, you can raise her interest stat without raising her trust. This makes it so that your sister will be down for having hate sex with you. How's that for a sideways relationship? And if she doesn't enjoy the hate sex, she'll write a letter to your dad and it's bad ending for you. Regardless, the intended way to play this game is to raise trust first and foremost. So in your average playthrough, you would start by gaining your sister's trust via talking and goofing around with her. And once she trusts you enough, she'll become more open to trying things. And then all you have to do is get her interested in sex and score. Now, some of you may be thinking that this gameplay loop sounds like grooming. And yeah, it kinda is. That's what makes it hot. You're doing things you're not supposed to do. That's the whole selling point of the game, in case you didn't already notice that from the incest. What's that? You were expecting me to defend this game? Ah, fine. Just because I like this game so much, I'm gonna try to defend it against grooming allegations. So here we go. Your Honor, there is a fine line between grooming and courting. Let me ask, what constitutes grooming? Is it power imbalance? Because my client is the adult who puts food on the table in his household. Well, I would argue that since his sister literally explodes when her mood gets too bad, she's the one with the power. What else constitutes grooming? Manipulation? In the game, we were never told the specifics of what my client and his sister were talking about whenever they talked, so there is no way to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was attempting to groom her. What do you say? Grooming by definition involves a child or a young person. Well, the disclaimer in this game says all the characters in this game are 18 years or older. Also, Your Honor, this game is fiction, none of this is real. You can't apply real-world morals to video games. But if this is fiction and none of this is real, then who are you defending? Shit, am I schizophrenic? I can go on and on about how perfectly done the life simulation part of this game is. Or rather, the sister dating grooming stat management life simulation part of the game. How the game not only lets you make your sister fall for you, but for you to fall for her as well. And by you, I mean the creep sitting behind the computer. You, not the in-game character you play as. That guy is already a siscon canonically. The game forces you to care for your sister over a long period of time that, by the end of your playthrough, you kind of feel like you know everything about her. And you develop a sense of familiarity with her. But the point of this video is for you to go try the game yourself. I'm not gonna do a pyrocynical and make an 8-hour video going through every nook and cranny of the game and making it pointless to actually play the game yourself. No, seriously, I was gonna play Fear and Hunger, but then I watched Pyrocynical's video on it and I feel like there's no point in playing the game anymore. I want you to experience this game and discover the hidden bits by yourself, and trust me, this game has a lot for you to discover. There are whole edge scenes hidden under very obscure conditions. And if you're not sold yet, this game only goes for $13 on Steam. And it often goes on discount. Okay, I normally wouldn't say this in this economy, but buy the game at full price if you can. I want Inosuke to get more money. He's working on a new game right now and I want it to be even better than this one. While I have said a lot of positive things about this game, no game is without flaws. And this game has a few. And no, the fact that this game is in black and white is not a real flaw. At least I don't consider it one. The monochromatic style gives it a unique charm. Until a bunch of lesser Eroge started doing it too. So I'll start with the small issues I have with the game first, then work my way to the bigger ones. And the first issue is that the game was made in a lower resolution. When you boot the game up for the first time, the game will open up in windowed mode. That is probably the resolution it was made in. You can make the game go full screen by pressing F4, but then you would notice the graphics look kinda pixelated. I got over it pretty quickly, but I can see it being a deal breaker for some people. The next flaw in this game is its coding. Well, maybe not coding so much as whatever it is you do in Wolf RPG Editor. You see, this game was made with Wolf RPG Editor, which is an engine kinda like RPG Maker, I think. I've never used either of the engines, but they looked samey to me from the tutorial videos I saw, and I'm not sure if making this kind of game with this kind of engine is ideal. Let me give you an example. The cut-in graphics that appear during the interactive edge scenes can glitch out if too many things are happening at once during sex. And I couldn't tell whether that happened because of the engine's limitations, or because Inosuke just didn't have a good grasp of it. One more example. When you're at home, you can do some combat training in the training menu. And depending on which stat you choose to train, it can cost you up to 20 energy points to do so. However, if you have exactly 20 energy points left, the game will tell you you're too tired to train. What? But worry not. The, coding? Programming? Scripting? Fuck it, I'll stick to coding even though I have no idea what the Wolf RPG Editor does. The game's coding issues won't affect your enjoyment of the game whatsoever, trust me. The bugs are not as bad as I made it sound, and they are never game-breaking. Though, more than programming, I wish Inosuke would manage his game-making process better. Just look at his blogs on his upcoming game, which is a remake of the predecessor to this game. There he shows his progress on this new game, and you can see that according to him, the illustration progress for the game is at 215%. And he's only made 50% progress on the script and 60% on the scenarios. And I'm not sure if the translation can be taken at face value. I don't know if scripto translates directly to script as in writing or script as in scripting as a coding term. Also, wait, he has staff? I thought he was a solo dev. He has two illustrators, one for normal art and another for chibi art? And Inosuke is the programmer and supervisor? How am I learning this now? Hi, Future Son here to say that I would have known he had a team if I hadn't skipped the game's credits. Wait, this just means the illustrator is either working overtime or just so cracked that Inosuke couldn't keep up. You know, Inosuke, I can help you program the game for free, on the condition that we move to Godot and we make the game at least 1080p. And Godot's negotiable. I can also do Unity, I think. Wait, Unity uses C#, right? Yeah, okay, Godot is negotiable. I can do Unity too. Probably. I'll have to learn it, but it will probably be better than the Wolf RPG engine. Okay, last flaw I want to talk about before I wrap this video up. The DLC. Or more specifically, the DLC story. The main game's story is about your guild trying to build its reputation by competing in a tournament while doing other stuff every now and then. Simple and straightforward, but it complements the gameplay loop very well. The DLC story, on the other hand, just drags. I won't go into too much details, but apart from the bit at the beginning of the DLC story is just a standard visual novel that replaces the morning section of the game. And it revolves around the game's side characters and has nothing to do with your sister whatsoever. Which would have been fine, if the game had added the same amount of content to the sister/evening part of the game. You see, in the main game, the main story is mostly told during the morning section of the game and is also largely unrelated to your sister. But it happens in parallel with the evening section of the game where you develop your relationship with your sister. So, you work on things related to the main story during the day and work on things related to your sister in the evening. This cycle makes every in-game day feel engaging. Now, for the DLC. By the time you get to the DLC story after beating the main game, if you weren't intentionally avoiding incest, you'd have explored all you could with your sister. Shit, you'd practically have a wife at this point. This means that you'd have nothing new to find in the latter half of the in-game day. It got so bad that at one point while going through the DLC story, I found myself skipping the evening sections just to get to the next day to do the next part of the goddamn story. And it would be one thing if the story is good, but it's not. Well, it's not that bad either, it's just that this game's strength has never been its storytelling. Now, weak story I can forgive. But the worst crime of all is that the story involves you having sexual relationships with other characters who are not your sister. And you get no say in this. The DLC story will automatically progress every morning and the edge scenes will be unavoidable. Look, I like the fact that you get to know the other girls better in the DLC story. But to not be able to choose to remain loyal to the girl you've spent the entire playthrough grooming, caring for throughout the main game. That's a little odd for a game that gives you so many options when it comes to your sister. This entire thing kinda contradicts both the main game's edge scene mechanics and the characterization of the Big Brother character you play as. You see, the edge scenes that happen in the DLC story are the only times in the game where you have no control whether sex will happen. The story will force it on you, even though every other edge scene from the main game is optional. And for the characterization of the Big Brother character you play as, he has always been a siscon. It's his only real personality, so while he fancies his cute colleagues, him cheating on his sister feels somewhat out of character. Like all those years secretly lusting after your sister, but the moment another cute girl spreads her legs, you crack? Jesus, I can't believe I'm speaking against having a harem. And I'm a staunch harem defender. And if I'm gonna cheat on my sister with my colleagues anyway, at least let me have a go with all of my colleagues, and not just only 2 out of the 4 of them. Talk about half measures. But should you still get the DLC regardless of the story issue? Yes, not for the story, but for the fact that it expands the edge scenes with your sister quite a bit. Enough that I feel like it's a must to get the full experience of the game. So go out there and get it, give it a try and become the big brother you were always meant to be. Before I go, one last thing. This video is titled The Greatest Eroge of All Time, and while it's supposed to be a funny clickbait title, this game is the best Eroge I've played. I even thought about making a section of this video into one where I go through a bunch of Eroge I've played one by one and explain why Monochrome Fantasy is better than them in like a kind of gauntlet. But that would make this a 2-hour video. So instead I'm gonna ask you gooners out there for recommendations. What is the Eroge you consider the best of all time, and if you've also played Monochrome Fantasy, which one do you think is better and why? Recommend me some in the comments. Extra points if your recommendation has the same strengths as Monochrome Fantasy that I pointed out in this video, which are 1. Has real gameplay with real fail conditions, so no visual novels, I have too much reading to do in real life already. And while Raising a Happy Need and this game with a really long title are cohabitation style Eroge, similar to Monochrome Fantasy, I don't count them as having real gameplay because you can't really fail at them. An Eroge with no fail state is more porn than game. Side note, Raising a Happy Need is actually very good at doing edge content, and does it better than Monochrome Fantasy, but like I said, no real gameplay. Feels like I bought porn instead of a game. Recommend it though. 2. The game must not give you edge content for free, meaning to get sex in the game you must work for it. Kaiju Princess and this other game with a really long title, again, are Eroge of the cohabitation genre much like Monochrome Fantasy, but in both of these games you get sex by just playing through the main story. Whereas in Monochrome Fantasy, sex is an optional thing you need to work towards. 3. I wanna say that number 3 is that the game must have a relationship system where a heroine will react to the change in your relationship with her. But that is very genre specific, so let's make number 3 be make me care about the heroine somehow. There you go. I really hope I get some gold out of this considering how long it took me to make this video. What's that? No, I didn't make this video to bait out Eroge recommendations from the audience. Shut the fuck up.